Hi, everyone. I'm Henry DeVries. I'm the publisher, partner, book architect at Indie Books International. And joining me today is Devin DeVries, no relation. No, she actually is my daughter. Devin DeVries, associate publisher and in charge of production and promotion of books at Indie Books. And welcome to our Marketing with a Book Summit. We're talking about authority power, and we like to say you can't spell the word authority without the word author. So we're here to talk about that. I have a number of things to cover. I know marketing was an interest. Dan, was you more are you more interested in how to write the book, how to publish the book, how to promote the book? What's most interesting
Yeah,
to you?
probably all of those. I'm still very much in an idea phase, and I have some principles that I use in consulting that I think I would like to capture one day. And so
Okay.
I'll be the whole run.
Okay. Well, I like to start with there are 9 ways to write a book. People think well, I'll tell you the one way not to write a book is seat of the pants, seat of the chair, um, just start writing a book. And that is not the way to go. Just like you wouldn't want to build a house by just getting some boards and nails and hey, there's Nora. Hi, Nora. Good to see
Sorry.
you.
Hello. Good to see
Um,
you, Henry.
Good to see you. Um, and that's not the way. You start with a blueprint. You start with a plan. And I'll talk about the different plans later. But first, you start with a plan. And then when you have that plan, then you can start to do it. And here's 9 ways. Um, you can you can put on a workshop and go workshop to book. I call this the Tony Robbins approach. I've also done it where I've traveled to people's workshops, recorded it, interviewed them, and turned a 3-hour workshop into a book. You could do blog to book. I call this the Julia and Julia approach after the woman who blogged about cooking every recipe and Julia Child's Mastering the Art of French Cooking. And then they made a movie out of it with Meryl Streep and Amy Adams. You can find a co-author. Um, I'm a ghostwriter. I'll talk about that in a minute. And I've ghostwritten for, you're not supposed to talk too much about who you've ghostwritten for, but I have ghostwritten for Ken Blanchard. And also, as a journalist, I've written a lot about Ken. And when I had my first authors conference, Ken was our speaker. Not that we could have afforded him. I think he was in the 25 to 50,000 range. But he happily came talk to 80 of our authors and speakers. And he told us that he said, "Oh, I haven't written a book yet." And we said, "Well, I think you've written 50 bestsellers." He says, "No, I've co-authored 50 bestsellers. I want to know what other people know." You can get a developmental editor. That's similar to a book coach. Uh, Andrea is a book coach we've got on the line here. And I think she's also a developmental editor. I'm a developmental editor. Um, um, Charles Dickens was a developmental editor. Not only was he a famous novelist, Oliver Twist and Christmas Carol, among others, David Copperfield. Yeah, but he also helped other authors, being a developmental editor, meaning he would help them develop the manuscript. He would create it in a creative process where back and forth in conversation. You can use the early riser approach. That's what Deepak Chopra does. I believe he gets up at 4:30, if I read the LA Times article right. 4:30 to 6:30 he writes every day. And that's how he's been so prolific with books. Uh, you can use a ghostwriter. I mentioned I'm a ghostwriter. Uh, I got a call once. The person said, "Is this Henry DeVries?" I said, "Yes." "Is this Henry DeVries, the ghostwriter?" I said, "Well, yes." He said, "Well, my story takes place on October 31st in an old mansion during a thunderstorm. A seance is being held in the parlor to contact the spirit of the departed owner of the mansion." And I said, "I have to stop you right there. I'm not that kind of ghostwriter. What I am is invisible. I help business people. I've helped Vistage chairs, Vistage members, business owners uh, behind the scenes write their book. We get the blueprint. I interview them. I make sure it's in their words, their tone, and then write the book. I do the heavy lifting, and they do the approving. So that's a ghostwriter. Interviews to book. Uh, Sometimes you can be interviewed, and a series of interviews recorded, transcribed, and you put those together, and you have a book. I nicknamed that the pharma CEO approach because during COVID, um, I was working with one of the presidents of the top 10 research pharmas in America. And he said, I know I'm crazy busy with this COVID thing. I want to write a book, but I don't have a lot of time. I said, do you have an hour a week? He said, sure. I said, okay. So each week for 45 minutes, we brainstormed what the chapter was going to be. And then I set him, and he would go on a walk outside with his smartphone recording device and record 10 to 15 minutes. And those became chapters, and we did 16 chapters. Um, it was interesting. He decided not to publish the book, but the book greatly clarified his thinking, and he used the chapters for speeches, articles, messages to his people. So, interviews to book, podcasts to books. I have one of my books was from a podcaster, award-winning podcaster in New York City, and she took 5 years of podcasts, picked the most interesting ones, and we turned that into a book. And then she parlayed that book, became a bestseller, and helped promote the podcast. So it was mutually beneficial. And then the last approach I call the misery approach. And this is retreats in a cabin where you go to some cabin and you don't come out until the book's done. So I nicknamed that after the Stephen King novel and movie. Um, you don't need Kathy Bates with a sledgehammer keeping you in there. You have to have your own discipline. I've done this many times to produce a book. Um, I don't usually go to cabins. I go to resorts. I like resorts better than cabins. And the longest it took me once was 6 days, 6 days straight working it. But usually in 3 days of concentrated effort, you can get a book done. But I don't necessarily recommend it. It's not for the faint of heart. So those are different ways to produce it. The first thing you need is a book blueprint. So let's talk about the book blueprint. The book blueprint is who is this book for? Who's your audience? Next, what problem are you solving? Then the third thing is what's your main message? How do you solve this problem in general? Um, Next, you need to know what type of story you're telling. We'll talk more about that. You need to know what approach you want to take. Those are important things to consider. And then um, once you have that, you should have a working title, which is a working trifecta title, and a working subtitle. So a trifecta title in horse racing, a trifecta bet is you get it's like a daily double where you pick two, but you pick three, or in a race you pick who's going to win, place, and show. So it's three things. For me, the trifecta title is one, it works as a book title. It's 3 or 4 words that communicates a message. My book, Marketing with a Book, Persuade with a Story. Uh, my business partner, Mark LeBlanc's Growing Your Business. So it's something like that. Then it also works for a speech title or a workshop title. This is the Marketing with a Book Summit. Mark does Growing Your Business events. So it would work for that. And then the third thing is you can buy the .com URL for $20. So you could be Dan at title. You could be Nora at title. Mark is Mark at Growing Your Business. I'm also Henry at persuadewithastory.com. And Mark has given over 1,000 presentations on his book, Growing Your Business. We recently published his second edition of that. 80,000 copies were in print, but it was written before this thing called the internet. So we thought maybe we need to update that book. I also advise people, anybody who's written a book before COVID, you need to update that book or you need to come out with a new book because generally the world is concluded. The world changed during the pandemic. The last part of the blueprint is making a decision about the type of information in your book. Are you going to have new information, more information, better information, or different information? New information means there's been some discovery or some breakthrough that you're talking about. The last few years, it's been artificial intelligence, AI. So a lot of books about AI. 15 years ago, it was about people understanding the brain better and neuropsychology and how the brain processes information. That was new. So we applied it and had books about that. So um, King Solomon said 3,000 years ago, there's nothing new under the sun. So that's a little cynical. There are new things that come along, but just because it's new to you doesn't make it new information in a book. More information. More information means you went deep. Um, here's one: 1,001 ways to market your book. You know, it's almost 1,000 pages. I think this is the problem, by the way, Andrea. There are 1,001 ways to market a book. I'll give you the top seven things to do, the most pragmatic seven things to do. Because who's got time for 1,000? There's better information. So this is a book that analyzed everything's out there. If you were writing a thesis, you do something called a literature search. So so you understand the stream of knowledge that you're in. So you've done all this, and then you analyze like best practices, the best practices according to you that something should be done. Usually it's a proprietary process that you're talking about in the book. And then the last one is different. Different is contrarian. It doesn't mean cranky, it doesn't mean a curmudgeon, but what it means is you've looked at the world, everybody else is saying you should zig. You believe people should zag. And here's why they should zag. Um, Someone I know, Alan Weiss, who's written several successful books, the Million Dollar Consultant is one. Um, he said, as he was a professional speaker, his strategy was to be a contrarian, no matter what was going on. So if artificial intelligence was popular, he would take an anti-position. Um, I don't even think he believed in his positions. It was just like in high school debate when they said, "Oh, here, capital punishment. You'll be pro and you'll be con." You know, it's just you argue it like an attorney argues for a living. It doesn't necessarily mean that's what they believe, but that they can make the argument. So in the contrarian different information book, you're making that argument. And it's not just, you know, you're pulling it out of air. You have to make a credible argument for that in it. So there's a blueprint. How many words is the book going to be? Is it going to be under 20,000? That's what Ken Blanchard likes to do. Uh, Ken Blanchard, I keep mentioning him. Ken Blanchard is in the Amazon Business Book Hall of Fame. He's in the top 10 for sales of a business book. Uh, he believes readers have short attention span theaters and you need to be brief. Other people want to write a 50,000 word book. My Buffett book, McGraw Hill wanted over 50,000 words in this book because it was a hardback. It was about Warren Buffett. They wanted people to take it seriously. There's another book called The Snowball about Warren Buffett, which is 800 pages. I can't imagine. That's probably 100,000 words on Warren Buffett. Uh, that author, she definitely took the more information approach. Um, I went for the better information approach on this book. So I talked about what other people had done. Um, by the way, one of the things I recommend is when you have your subject that you're going after, you know it. Um, when I was assigned to write the Warren Buffett book, that day I went to Amazon and bought 11 books about Warren Buffett. I sold it to McGraw-Hill because I said, of all the books on Warren Buffett, all of them talk about Warren Buffett, the investor. Nobody has talked about Warren Buffett, the deal maker. So how does he get companies to sell them his sell sell their company to his company, Berkshire Hathaway, for maybe 80% of what others are offering? How does he do that? That's what that book's about. And there's 17 principles I lay out for that. Okay, your blueprint has the number of words. It should have the tone. What kind of tone do you want? Is this a third person serious business book? Or is this more of a you book? You should do this, you should do that. More conversational, more fun. What's the tone you want for the book? We said you want to be an authority, and writing books, authoring books is key to authority. But what type of authority do you want to be? If we had a few words before your name, um, one person I'm working with right now, he's a clean tech innovator. That's the authority he wants. Another person that wants to be a business development authority. What what authority space are you claiming with this book? So that would be important to look at. Any questions so far? Then I'll keep going. So there are 8 best-selling book formats. 9 ways to write a book, 8 best-selling book formats. We're going by the numbers here. The 8 formats is something that I've discovered that every work of fiction follows one of these 8 formats, and the 100 greatest business books of all time follow one of these formats. One is the monster problem book. There's this monster problem out there, and it's life or death. So you've got to solve this problem. Um, the 1 Minute Manager by Blanchard is a monster problem book because it's about somebody who gets promoted up to management. They don't know how to manage people, and it's probably up or out. They're probably going to lose their job if they don't figure this out. So that that's very serious. If you're writing a book about that, we're doing a lot of work now with people who are trying to fight forever chemicals. These are these invisible, toxic chemicals that 50% of us are exposed to on a regular basis, according to the EPA. And it can lead to death and cancer, well, cancer and other forms of things that'll kill you. Okay, that's a monster problem. The next format is the Cinderella, David versus Goliath, rags to riches formula. And this is about the little guy versus the big guy. And if you're writing a book about David versus Goliath problem, we just did one. Devin, I'm going to ask you to chime in. What was the title of our David versus Goliath book?
Health Tech Giant Slayer.
Health Tech Giant Slayer. So Fred Sheffield out of North Carolina, was a chief revenue officer for several companies in the health tech space, and they took on really big companies and won. So I didn't have to tell him he was telling a David versus Goliath story. When I visited his home, there was a giant artwork of a little David and a big Goliath behind them. So he really knew this was his story, and that's the story he wanted to tell. So is that the story you're telling? Um, the little person versus the big person. That's that format. Um, Next one is a comic solution. It's a wacky idea. Um, if it's in literature, a wacky idea um, might be like the film Wedding Crashers, where to find love and romance, two lawyers crash weddings on the weekend. Okay, that's a wacky idea to solve a problem. Hijinks ensue. Um, Richard Branson of Virgin uh, has lots of wacky ideas in his book on how he used to how he overcame being a virgin. I'm not exactly sure how he picked virgin as the name, but he has a wacky tone to some of his books. If you are writing about somebody taking a shortcut, a tragic decision that ends badly, you're writing a cautionary tale. And, the show Breaking Bad was a cautionary tale about a high school chemistry teacher who wanted to fund his retirement by making the Cadillac of meth in an RV in New Mexico. What could possibly go wrong? Plenty. It made an interesting series, a series of wrong decisions, which ends in death. Um, in business, The Big Short, Too Big to Fail, Barbarians at the Gate. These are all examples of these cautionary business tales. Um, Usually I advise against it. I had one person who was a receiver. The courts would appoint him to take over a failing business, and he just had story after story of these things that went wrong. And I said, your book is going to be filled with tragic tales, um, and that you were an eyewitness to. And they were all lessons of things not to do in business. Actually, for him, it worked. Okay, the next one is a mystery. Think Sherlock Holmes, think Agatha Christie. Um, it's one of my favorite formats to write. Uh, if somebody is like in the technology space and what they do and the problem they solve is a conundrum, that can be a mystery. Titles and mysteries are like cracking the code or unlocking the secrets or secrets. That word. These are all tip-offs that there's some knowledge that's going to get revealed, and puzzles and riddles and all of these words indicate a mystery. So if you're writing about that, then there is a quest. A quest is a search for a prize, a journey. A lot of people know the work about the hero's journey, and Star Wars came out of some of that work. And so, what's the hero's journey? What's the quest? The quest is a search for a prize. When I wrote How to Close a Deal Like Warren Buffett, that's a quest. That's what you want. You want to be like the world's greatest deal maker. If you're writing about a career, what you've learned over a career, that's a journey. That's a quest. The interesting things about quest stories, and we know things like Raiders of the Lost Ark and um, King Solomon's Mine, and these other things. That's a quest where people are going on it. Is often the knowledge you learn during the journey is more valuable than the prize you obtain. So when you're sharing about a lot of this wisdom that you've learned, this is a great topic for a quest book. The next and seventh is the redemption rebirth story, the comeback story. Um, if something like the old way died and now you're on a new way, you're telling this story. Um, we just published a book by Jolinda Wade. Devin, what's the title of Jolinda Wade's book?
Conquering Me.
Conquering Me. So Jolinda Wade is now a pastor. Um, Her son, Dwayne Wade, is a Hall of Fame basketball player and part owner of the Utah Jazz. Uh, but she had this horrible life where drugs and prison were involved, and she came back from that. And the book is about that comeback. You would say, oh, it's about the journey, but it's different than the journey, like when you're on a quest or going for a prize or something. This was like things go bad. I told Jolinda that people need books like hers because we all need to know that no matter how bad things are, we can take action to get better. And that's something important in a book. The last one is escape. Um, and an escape story, think Alice in Wonderland, where she goes down the rabbit hole and has to escape Wonderland. Or think The Wizard of Oz, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, with Dorothy Gale from Kansas, who has to make her way back to Kansas. Why, I don't know, but I'm sorry. If anybody's in Kansas, no Kansas jokes today. Okay. So you're in a normal place, and then you get off track, and then you get back to a normal place. I helped a person who's a Vistage speaker, Dr. Bruce Heller, with his book, The Prodigal Executive. And in that book, we looked at his work. And in brief, I nicknamed it, he's an a-hole coach. Um, Companies will bring him in when somebody who is too painful to keep, but too valuable to let go. So often it's the board or a CEO, and it might be somebody like the CEO or the chief technology officer or somebody of that rank. Um, and Bruce will come in and say, I've got good news and bad news. They said, what's the bad news? Well, the bad news is I'm your last chance. You know, the board or the CEO has decided that if you can't turn it around, we're going to let you go. So what's the good news? He says, I'm very expensive. They spent a lot of money on this. So they want you to work out. Bruce told me that 8 out of 10 of the people he worked with got back on track. I said, what happened to the other two? He said, one um, really wanted to go, and some of their acting out was just so people would let them go. And I don't know, I don't know if you remember dating a long time ago, but like that awful high school dating strategy where you didn't want to date the person anymore, so you just acted horrible until they called it off, and then your slate was clean. Well, that's what these people are doing psychologically. I said, well, what about the 10th? He said, the 10th was just too proud to accept coaching. So the prodigal executive, and he asked me, he said, I'm Jewish. He goes, do it. You're having me use a story from the book of Luke in the New Testament. I said, oh, this story's been around all over. We're just using that title of it, but um, people know this story about getting off track and getting back. So another author I helped with her book, um, and we called it Escape from Crazy Town because she is an executive coach, and usually it's after a merger or a new CEO or something, and their job that was really great uh, becomes awful, and they want out, And she said, well, first, why don't you try to escape from crazy town where you're at right now? And if you're willing to leave, why don't you take some actions? Um, I had something, thanks to that book, I had something recently where I was going to resign. And instead, I just said, here, we need to talk about things. I'm not going to do this. I'm willing to do that. And, if you want me to leave because of it, and they said, leave. No, no, don't leave. No, we don't want you to leave. So, the best part of my job? I get to read 200 business books and you learn some stuff along the way. There's a lot of wisdom here. I think the best part of our job is the ripple effect that I'll never know. So Devin was employee number one. Now she's a partner. We've put out these 200 books, and they are solving problems, real problems. You never know the ripple effect of somebody who reads the book, takes action, or the person who we help make an authority, and they can teach and be a workshop leader, or they get more people into their peer group or whatever, and the ripple effect that it has. So that's a good thing for us. Um, let's talk marketing, Andrea. Let's talk about the seven best things to leverage the book, to market the book, not the 1001. It's a great book, by the way. The author, I believe, is John Kremer, Kremer. But here's Henry's Magnificent Seven, named after that the classic cowboy movie with Steve McQueen and Yul Brynner, or if you prefer the Chris Pratt, Denzel Washington version, the Magnificent Seven. Okay, number one, small scale seminars. Um, in Devin, can I put you on the spot? Can I get you to tell your story of how we built indie books with small scale seminars? I'm awful. I didn't tell Devin she'd be speaking today.
Sure. So we founded Indie Books back in 2014. And as a new player in the market, we knew we needed to make some strategic partnerships. So we found the top public relations company for promoting books and authors was a firm out of Tampa, Florida called News and Experts. And Henry was able to get a call with their CEO, Marcia, and they had a really nice kind of introductory chat that ended as those things often do, with Marcia saying, well, the next time you're in Florida, come by and we'll talk more. So Henry hangs up the phone, comes out to my office and says, when's the next open date on our calendar? And I said, probably about 3 weeks from now, the beginning of September. And he said, great, we're going to Florida. He said, okay. So he calls Marcia back up and says, oh, it just so happens I'm going to be in Orlando at the beginning of September. Maybe we can meet. And they set up an appointment. And then Marcia asks, oh, what's bringing you to Florida? And Henry says, well, I'm putting on my marketing with a book and speech summit. And she says, well, that sounds very interesting. I would love to attend that. So here's the problem. We have 3 weeks now to fill a room so we don't look like posers in front of the CEO we're trying to impress. And we're based out of Southern California. We know nobody in Florida at that point. So what were we gonna do? So at that time, LinkedIn was just starting to really become this amazing networking tool. And we developed just a really simple kind of invitation, you know, way to connect with people that we knew were our target, and a simple invitation to this no cost, workshop we were putting on. And I'll say, Henry believes in setting, goals with incentives. And if there's one thing about me you should know, it's that I can work anywhere in the world with Wi-Fi, But if I could choose one place for my office, it would be on Main Street of Disneyland. I am a Disney nut. He knows this. So he said, if you can get 12 people to RSVP for this event in 3 weeks, I'll buy you a ticket to Disney World while we're in Florida. So to me, that was like challenge accepted. I, found every consultant and business owner within about a 2 hour drive of Orlando on LinkedIn I could, invited them. And in the end, I was able to get 15 people to RSVP to our event. We met with Marcia. It was a great, um, initial meeting, and we've become longtime partners with them. But that's not even the best part of the story. We wrote business that covered the expense of that entire trip as a result of those LinkedIn messages. So there were a few people that got our invite and said, oh, I can't make that date, but I've been looking for a ghostwriter. And they set up a call with Henry. And we had another gentleman, which was an interesting side effect of this, looked at Henry's profile, saw that he had done Vistage speaking, and said, hey, I'm trying to get into that world. Could you coach me? And bought, 2 coaching sessions, which again wasn't even our main business, but it helped, cover those marketing costs. So that is a strategy that we then used across the country to grow the business. We've put on these summits everywhere, and we're still doing them to this day.
Thanks, Devin. I love the story because Devin's the hero of that story, and I'm the villain. I'm the CEO who just comes up with this impossible idea and dumps it on her desk. And here, you have no contacts, no budget. Make this work. Oh, and here's a 3-day pass to Disney World. I'm dangling the carrot. I'm dangling. Yeah. So, but follow it through. And for everybody's business, I recommend you do a genealogy of revenue. So the genealogy of revenue. So Marcia's the biggest book publicity firm in the land. We've published 0 books at this point. So in that, I stalked her, obviously, and then in that conversation, said, hey, we could be good for you, and you could be good for us, and you'll run into people who need a publisher, and we can help with that, and we'll have people who need promotion, and we'll send people your way. One of our most successful authors, we sent her way, and uh, generated amazing national publicity for. Um, and then Marcia asked for a favor. She said, "I got a client in Topeka, Kansas. Uh, they need some help with some books they want to get out for some of their clients." It was a marketing agency for financial service advisors. Um, I helped them out, and they have turned into our largest client. Um, we are their premium custom book solution. So I'll be ghostwriters for these financial advisors. So they get a ghostwriter who has a best-selling international book on Warren Buffett. So it all works out. Power of small-scale seminars. And Devin also mentioned that we built the business with these. When the pandemic happened, Friday the 13th, March 20, never forget it because we've been doing this. But Devin was responsible for the pandemic. I have to tell people this because 2 months earlier in January of 2020, Devin says, we've got to do something to get Henry off the road. We need Henry traveling less. Um, and and she had us try this thing called Zoom. And in January and February, we did a Zoom event, and they were horrible. I mean, they were just botched. We were so bad. And then March came around, and at the end of March, we were teaching other people how to do events on Zoom. So we were teaching what we needed to learn about, and we would have other experts come in, and and we took the small scale seminars to Zoom. Um, we have to keep pivoting with this strategy. Things change. LinkedIn is not what it was. Oh, Devin, I had to laugh at your story, and it was true, but I thought, oh, wow, it's been that long, 2014, because you said, and Henry hung up the phone. We used to have real phones in 2014. I was, I put on a conference, and the speaker on stage was a 67-year-old man, and he was making his point that just pick up the if you want new business, just pick up the damn phone. Pick up the damn phone and dial to get new business. And sitting next to me was a millennial woman. And I said, in the old days, we used to have to pick up phones and dial to talk to people. She says, oh no, I've seen the old movies. And then I should have quit when I was ahead. I said, oh, if you need me to explain things like newspapers, travel agents, and mimeograph machines, just ask. And she said, oh, I'll just Google that shit. So, touche. Number two, get on other people's stages with how to advice on your topic. What helps you get on other people's stages? Being an author. Being an author will get you on podcasts. I'm on 4 podcasts a month right now. I limit it to that. And then I do, oh, this is scary when I say it out loud. I've gone from 4 to 8 now. I do 8 podcast/TV shows a month. Uh, but I also get on other people's stages where they invite me to speak, either virtually or online, or I'll be at the University of Michigan next week at a leadership conference, and I'll be speaking on helping people make new decisions. And you do it through storytelling. Okay, what is it for you? But getting on other people's stages or being on their podcasts, great thing to do because they've assembled the audience. More people will be impacted by you talking about the book than actually reading the book or reading about the book. But that's number three is getting published with how-to information. And I write monthly for the California Business Journal. I'm a paid writer for them. For 7 years, I was a paid columnist, weekly columnist for Forbes online. Now, I didn't start there. I started with a column in the San Diego Business Journal, a a 10,000 person circulation newspaper that basically exists to publish all the liens and construction notices and DBA filings. But they have to have some articles so all the ads don't bump into each other. So I had a monthly column and worked my way up and written for CBS Money Watch and Inc. Uh, Forbes, I worked for free to start, and then they let go of all the free people and they hired 100 of us on contract and then worked its way through that. Um, the doing the podcast and doing the column, I have to talk about this. Um, we call that a thought fellowship strategy. Um, a buddy of mine, he calls it the Trojan horse strategy. It's where you build relationships by putting a spotlight on other people. Either you write about them. I do a weekly LinkedIn column. Um, I created my own news website and do articles on people in there, in addition to articles on people in the California Business Journal or articles when I was with Forbes. Uh, so, well, I'm going to share an interesting story. Um, so the reason I don't work for Forbes anymore is we had a disagreement. I thought I worked for Forbes and they thought I didn't. And the reason they thought I didn't was a new editor came along and said, I've analyzed all your columns. They're great. We're going to keep publishing them, but there's something we found that's disturbing. I said, "Oh, what's that?" He says, "We found at least 12 people who you wrote about who later became a client of yours." I said, "Well, there was no quid pro quo or agreement or anything when we started." We said, "Oh, we're not saying that, but we just don't like the fact that you eventually took them on as a client." So what I thought in my head but didn't say aloud is, "Oh, because you paid me $50, you don't want me to get tens of thousands of dollars?" I wasn't willing to agree to that. And, went looking for a new home for my talents. We decided to part ways, but I'm listed as a former contributor and my 350 columns are up there and that's great. But what I really loved from the conversation, it took me for a while to love this part, but what I loved was like, oh my gosh, the strategy worked. I didn't know how many, I never counted, but it was like 12. I interviewed one man who used this strategy where he he wanted to consult with small to mid-sized businesses, the Vistage range, 10 to 100 million. So he did a little research on what were some of the pressing questions they had, and then proceeded to do a research project where he interviewed 100 of them, and he used the results for the basis of a book he published. And the deals he made with the CEOs he interviewed was, I will give you the first look, pre-publication look at the data. I can't tell you what your competitor does, but I'm aggregating the data so you'll know that 30% are doing this and 50% are cutting back on that. So they agreed to the interviews. Funny thing happened along the way. Three of them said, "Yeah, I know this book's coming out, but would would you consult with us now?" And he landed three big clients before the book even came out, and now is seen as an expert in that space. So that's how some of this can work together. Uh, the third thing, getting published and getting other people to write about you. The the spectrum on that, the first thing that starts is a LinkedIn newsletter. I started a LinkedIn newsletter a couple of years ago. Weekly, I publish something. When we're done with this, I'm going to turn the column on for today. Um, I went from 0 to 2,500 subscribers without any promotion. Just it's a targeted for a certain group. I really believe in targeting. Mine is for agency owners, marketing agency owners. That is probably 25 to a third of our business. I do work with other people, leadership experts and executive coaches and consultants and healthcare B2B people, you know, financial advisors. I mentioned them. Yeah. Um, a lot of them all have some kind of marketing tie to it. But for the newsletter, I took that specific group and talked about their problems. And organically, 2,500 people subscribe and read it. It's a great tool. And I don't have to get anybody's permission. No editor has to approve my column every week. I get my column out there. There are other things like Substack that you can do, and there are other ways to do this. But I say it's all about typing and talking. So this is the typing part. Okay, number four, find a target-rich environment, a target-rich group. For my agency world, it's the Agency Management Institute, and they have an annual Build a Better Agency conference, and I'm going to be there, um, meeting people. I've spoken there. That would be the number two strategy. But years where I'm not invited to speak, I attend because You got to circulate to percolate. You got to get around and move in those circles. And then the next thing is I can uh, invite people I meet there to be on my TV show. That's that Trojan horse relationship builder. Um, Only one person in 2 years of the TV show, weekly TV shows, used or declined to be on the TV show. And it was a person for whatever reason. He says, I want no men I want no mention of me anywhere in social media. He's an anti-social media person. Um, he's very good at what he does, and word of mouth is how we found him, and we're glad we did. But there would be no other way we would have found out about him because that low profile. I don't recommend it for the rest of you. Number five is, well, I'm sorry, I didn't finish four. You find the target rich group and you get involved. Don't just attend. Five is attend. Four is get involved. So for the Institute of Management Consultants, Devin and I put on their national conference for 3 years. For other groups, I'll be a media sponsor and help get them publicity and other things. So get involved. I always found the easiest committee to sign up for is the membership committee because everybody wants membership and the people, who wants to be on the membership committee? I do. When I ran my own advertising and PR agency in San Diego, we had a very solid niche in real estate. I wanted to diversify. So the target rich environment I found was the Hotel Motel Association. All the owners of the hotels and motels in San Diego belong to this, or many of them. Not all. That's why they needed a membership committee. So I joined the membership committee. Oh, when I signed up to join the group, the membership committee person said, "Well, Mr. DeVries, I'm confused." And I said, "Well, why are you confused?" She said, "You're the only advertising agency that has joined the Hotel Motel Association." And I thought, excellent. And within a year, I had three of the biggest properties became a client. And I won the contest. There was a contest and I signed up one hotel on the membership committee. But it was one of the largest resorts in San Diego, and how they scored the contest was the number of rooms that the property had. So my one had so many more rooms than any other whatever little hotels that they signed up for. So you can do that. Okay, five, just attend. If where they are gathered, you want to be there. What's your target group? Um, and that target group is a great place to uh, gather. I was going to say gather business cards. Um, what's that thing we do with the phones, Dev, with the apples, phones that go to each other? That thing. Um, yeah. Pretty soon we'll be explaining business cards to people. Well, there used to be little pieces of paper we'd hand out. Um, my uh, uh, Devin, what year would Jack have gone to college? That'd be 2005 or
Well, 2004, but
2004.
but did 2 years of community college first. So
So it's so
SF
it's the
State was
year's
like 2000.
2006, and my son Jack wants to be a journalist. Now you think that would warm my heart. It just scared me to death because like journalism, how are you going to make it in journal? It's like you're picking a dying industry. And I said, but I'll go on a college tour with you. Well, two things. He said, well, I actually want to go into, the video game industry, a journalist covering that niche. Now I'm thinking like, oh, how big is that? Well, we looked at the numbers and we found out it was the fastest growing, it was a hockey stick. It was the fastest growing segment in the entertainment industry. Um, and then the next thing, one college had a very strong journalism department, and this other college in San Francisco was doing this digital online journalism. And they were funded by the Hearst family. It was underwriting this, and uh, and Jack was explaining to me, oh no, people still need to read and get information and do that. They're just not going to have paper delivered to um, their sidewalk. So I was with my dad right after that, and there was a golf tournament that he had recorded on the VCR with Tiger Woods was vying to win the tournament, and my dad made a mistake on the size of the tape he put in. So just when it was going to a playoff with Tiger Woods and someone else, the tape ran out. And my dad said, "Oh no." He said, "We're we're gonna have to wait till the paper comes tomorrow to see who won the tournament." And I said, "No, Dad, no, we're not. The newspaper is on this." And then let me get it for you, and I'll tell you what happened. Okay. So technology moves on. When I got my MBA in 1998, I did an executive MBA program. I was president of a large ad agency and getting my MBA. So I learned so much in 2 years, and then I went to my advisor, my professor advisor, and I said, "Okay, I learned so much in the last 2 years, but I'm afraid about how do I keep learning and changing?" And he goes, "Oh, you know all the business principles you need to know now. What you need to do is constantly learn new technology. Keep learning new technology." And Devin will smirk because I'm learning a lot by saying Devin, but actually I'm doing better than other people. We got to just keep up with the technology. Okay, keeping up with the technology. Number six, a thing called YouTube. LinkedIn we love because LinkedIn is the world's largest B2B database in the world. You can start off with free. We're just on the first paid level of it. Just amazing. With Devin's guidance, we now have 20,000 LinkedIn connections and 2,500 subscribers to the LinkedIn newsletter. But YouTube, video, getting things on video and short video. Uh, get we're recording this. This will go on. We had a conference. Everybody who spoke at our conference last week, everything is going on our YouTube channels. And when people Google you, I was giving a speech once, and the person came up and said, um, "Before I came to hear you speak, I Googled you." And I said, "Oh, I had a strange sense I was being Googled." Okay, when they Google you, one of the things that's going to come up on the first page is a YouTube video about you or about somebody else. Google's really okay with it because Google owns YouTube, and they want you searching. More people now for how-to information are searching on YouTube for the answers instead of Google. Another thing as a journalist, which is a little frightening, is people are not even reading the Google searches anymore. They're reading the AI summary that Google provides. So it's scraped these things and just giving you that level. You want to be on YouTube for the YouTube searches, and I label every episode I do without a clever title. I go for clarity over cleverness. Everything is, I try to figure out what would people search, well, what would they type in on search, how to blank, that this would come up. So that's my recommendation, but Google. The seventh thing is putting on paid events. Put on paid events. So as a sample, either a sample or a clever promotional thing here, I'm going to talk about some things we have coming up. So I'm doing Write the Right Book authors retreats. I've got one April 17th and 18th, 2026, and another one July 31st and August 1st in Chicago. I do it at a hotel by O'Hare and has a shuttle. Because every city has a direct flight to Chicago. So it's 2 days. My editor in chief joins me, and we work with a handful of people. Our maximum is going to be 9 people there, and we're going to interview them. We're going to transcribe it, and you're going to walk out after 2 days with 20 to 25,000 words, a skeletal framework of the book, following the blueprint and the interviews. We've done it before. Devin and I have done it in Las Vegas for another company, and now we're doing it for us. Um, it's 50, what was it, 5,600 to do it, but it's 4,500 for people who sign up in March. Okay, if you're interested in that, where's information on that, Devin, if they're interested?
indiebooksintl.com/events.
Flash events. Then we also have a thing called Speak and Get Paid Masterclass. A lot of people are authors, or what they want to do is just directly go to that number two strategy to speak more. Um, my partner, Mark LeBlanc, is past president of the National Speakers Association. We do the class together. He has trained over 1,000 consultants and professional speakers on this. And it's a 3 day master class. Our August one is August 6th and 8th, and it starts at UC Irvine. You speak at a authors roundtable, experts roundtable, then attend a growth summit, and then we work 2 days on your speech and teaching you all the inside baseball about how you get paid to speak. We're going to do something similar at UCLA November 5th and 7th of 2026, where you'll speak at UCLA. We'll have a conference and then a private master class for 2 days. That is 2165 with a $200 discount for the first 5 who sign up for both events. Okay, information on the website. Okay, I'm demonstrating what I want you to do. What knowledge do you have that's so valuable that people would pay time and money to join you? Offer that. Yes, it's a revenue stream, but more important, it builds your authority that you're putting on these events, that you're doing these things. The event I talked about last weekend is our authors conference. We have an annual authors conference. We get about 50 of our authors together, other people to speak. We put them on video to record it. People pay us anywhere from 500 to 1,500 to be a part of that, depending on all the bells and whistles they want. What is that you could do? And that's the Magnificent Seven, doing all those things. And that's a way to get the most out of your book. I'll tell you 6 blunders to avoid. 6 book blunders to avoid. One, not focusing on a target audience. I want you to be less interesting to everybody, but more intensely interesting to a sliver of the market. 2, know the problem that you're solving. What is the big problem? And you should interview at least 9 people in that sliver about, I'm writing a book. And what do you think the biggest problem is? I also go online. I know for agency owners, because there's been research that I piggybacked off of, that 2 out of 3 agency owners worry that they don't have enough right fit prospects in their pipeline. I mean, it's wake up at 3 a.m. kind of worry. The second biggest worry, and it's for 50% of them, is they don't have time for business development. They're so busy doing it for clients, they don't have a proactive way to get it out there. So that's what my work with them is about, solving those problems. The biggest problem, number one, is to get right fit prospects in their pipeline. That's what I write about. That's what I speak about. That's what I do books on. Okay. Third thing is have a solution. Have a have a main message, a solution on how you solve it. Have a point of view. My point of view is a book is the number one marketing tool for people who are in the business of selling expertise. Speaking about the book is the number one business development strategy for them. Book marketing tool, speaking is the strategy. And we do the paid speaking because there are certain stages you can't get on unless you qualify. Vistage, we got some Vistage. I was going to say brethren. Is it sistren and fellows? What do we say, Nora? Family. We got Vistage family here. I've done 50 Vistage workshops around the country. I was a Vistage member. Vistage is the largest CEO peer-to-peer group in the world.
Well said.
Thank you. And I'll go further, Nora. The reason you join Vistage is to make better decisions, to get the wisdom of the team and the leader so you can make better decisions and you fill gaps. Um, in my Vistage group, people would come to me for marketing advice, but I went to others on financial advice. I got a B in accounting in my MBA. I
And you
aced
scraped to
everything
get that.
else. It's like, yeah, finance. I squeaked an A minus out of the finance course, but there are people a lot smarter about those things than me, so we fill gaps on that. Um, so if you're a Vistage speaker, like Devin mentioned, the guy paid me to coach him to be a Vistage speaker. This is what I told him. I said this, and I said, and you've got to. I did 4 practice Vistage talks uh, before I even did my first pro bono Vistage talk. I hired a room, I got people in there, and I got feedback. Nora, I'll tell you the feedback. You might be interested. The first time I did it 50%. I'm sorry, I did it 2/3 was content and 1/3 was interaction. And the feedback was, that was great, more interaction. So I did 50% content, 50% interaction. And the response was, that was great, do more interaction. So the next time I did 25% content, 75% interaction. And they said, that's really great, more interaction. So then I did 100% interaction and did well. And on one of my last ones, they said, could you just do 100% facilitation and get the members talking to each other? And I said, oh, that's where I got to draw the line. I'm like,
May as
why
well
am I
become a
here?
chair.
Yeah, that's the chair. Get a good facilitator to talk
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
So that's the third blunder. The fourth blunder is you don't know what kind of story you're telling. That format I said. Is this a quest story? Are you telling a rags to riches story? Is this a escape from crazy town? What story are you telling? You need to know. And that's 4. Number 5, you need a working title. A working title means it's not necessarily the title you're going to have. 2 very successful Vistage speakers came to me. It was the first book I ghost wrote. And our working title was Forget Everything You Know About Hiring. And when we were doing one of the CEO interviews to complete the book, somebody said, I know exactly the problem here and what you're talking about, and I see it every day. Um, it's like I hire a senior executive and they sit across from me and I go, you're not the person I hired. We went, bing. That's the title of the book. We went to 10,000 copies in print like right away.
I love that book.
Barry Deutsch and Brad
Yep.
Remillard.
Yep. Yep.
And top Vistage speakers with that book. And they sent me a letter that said they credit that book with an extra $1 million in revenue over a decade that they made as a result of leveraging that book. So that's some of the power. The sixth thing is you don't know the information question. Is your book new information, better information, more information, or different information? So It's blunders. So the first thing you need to do is all of those are a blueprint. Start with a blueprint. I do a class about 8 times a year uh, called the book kickoff class, where I walk through those questions with a handful of people, and you walk out with the answers to those questions for you, at least working answers to get started. I'm a big believer in the German proverb, um, if you're on the wrong road, it doesn't matter how fast you're going. Actually, I have a tweak to it. It does matter because if you're on the wrong road, you're getting away from where you should be at top speed. You know, actually, you need to you need to test the road you're on, and if it's the wrong road, get off of it and get on a different road as fast as you can. So that's some of the power of one, having a blueprint, and then two, testing it with some interviews of people that are in your target audience and doing that. That class is 365, but anybody who listens or attends the summit, if they email Henry or Devin at indiebooksintl.com, we will comp them into a class. And information on it is on the website. Um, Let me give you the 5 ways to publish your book. There are 5 ways to publish a book. Most people know the traditional way, like McGraw-Hill, traditional book publisher, 100-page proposal to them. They approved it. Uh, Takes like a year to get it out there. I get 15% of the profit when I can catch them. You can also privately publish the book. Your company, your institute, your whatever can publish the book. You cobble together a team of editors and artists to do it. You can independent publish the book, indie publish. That's why we're called indie books. Um, so we're a hybrid of a traditional and self-publishing. So you hire experts, but you retain 100% of the intellectual property. With traditional, I sold my intellectual property to McGraw-Hill for a royalty that I would earn later. It was like they paid me with my own money to buy it. Yeah, it's kind of a crazy deal. I'm proud I have that book. It's really helped me. I've leveraged it. Some of my authors say, Henry, I make more money with the books I publish with you than with the New York publishers. And I said, me too. And there's a reason they have a 45-story skyscraper in Manhattan. And it's not because they're generous paying authors, let me tell you. Uh, Association. You can get an association like the American Marketing Association or some association to publish your book. And then there's the dreaded S word, self-publishing, but I just beg you never to use it. It has a stigma. It's like something crazy grandpas do to publish their books. With that. Now, I see our time is almost up. I just wanted to go around and hear from the three of you. What was the best nugget of information you got from today? Would really love to hear that. So start with Dan, and then Andrea, and then we'll go to Nora. Dan?
I thought it was all interesting. I like the 8 book formats and the 6 blunders to avoid. But I thought it was all interesting. It was kind of like authorship by the numbers all the way through. It was good.
Thank you. Andrea?
Well, I'm interested in the marketing aspect and I appreciate the 9 top marketing tips. I have to look at the excuses I make why I can't do them. For example, I don't know how to set up a YouTube channel, that sort of thing. And I don't have someone like Devin working with me. So, it's just me. So I have to find some of these marketing ideas that I can do that I don't need somebody else when I have no technology experience. For example, someone else the other day told me with the LinkedIn newsletter. And I had no idea how to set up a link, but I think that's something I could probably learn to do pretty easily. but I don't know how to get people to read it because nobody ever comments on my LinkedIn posts, even though I have 2,500 followers. So I think I'm going to start with that because it's something I think I can do. And then go down your list and start doing the things that I think I can do without, tech help.
May I offer an idea?
Oh, absolutely. That's why I'm here.
Gen Z. You find a Gen Z person who you pay uh, $25 an hour to, and they'll say $25 an hour for a side hustle. Wow.
I,
And
I already put a post up for an intern at Maricosta College, but I haven't heard anything back. So I think I have to call them. But that's
so
definitely, I had that idea.
my managing editor approached me to be an intern. She was studying publishing at San Diego State. And I told her, no, I will not bring you on as an intern. I will hire you as an editorial assistant. So you're paid, and it's on your resume that you're paid to work here. Um, Makes a big difference.
All right. Well,
Um,
I'll
and
pursue
then
some other
wait,
colleges
why I
also.
said $25 is because we were at In-N-Out Burger, Devin and I was, and it said, now paying $22 an hour. And I said, I don't want In-N-Out paying more for their people than we do. I don't want to lose somebody because, oh, now, well, where's she now? Well, she's a fry cook down at In-N-Out. So, little extra helps. Nora, best nugget you got.
Um, you said it in two different ways. One going through the blunders, but first in the piece around I don't know what you called it. Um, your top points about really understanding what it is you're trying to say, who you're trying to say it to, and working backwards from that. That that's been the thing for me is, I write a blog, it comes out every week, it's on LinkedIn. I have followers, I've done nothing with it. And at this point, it's like, what do I do? How do I put this? How do I get to the broader audience, which may not be a book and maybe just a YouTube channel? I don't know, but I get people read my blog every week. I've been doing this since 2014. I don't know if you get it,
Yeah.
Henry. But I've never really marketed it well. And the point I want to do is I want it to be easier for people to be great leaders in mid-sized businesses. And I have a lot to say, but it's not one point. Dan gets I don't know if Dan may have an opinion. I don't go to my members and ask them because I'm here to coach them. They're not here to coach me, right?
Right.
So I need a different place to go to and talk about this because I think I have, and the point you made, and I don't mean to going on too long about
Yeah.
who are the people that really benefit from this. Other Vistage chairs are the ones who come up to me every time they see me, tell me how much they appreciate my blog. They pass it to their members. The members pass it to their teams. I have no idea, but the ripple effect is real. And so I still feel like there's something here I need to give. It's not that I want to go talk to everybody. I just want to reach the audience that wants what I have to offer.
I hear you. One of my mentors uh, would talk about um, you could be paid $5,000 and you're going to talk to 100 people, and you're just one person on the agenda, like at a conference. Or you could talk to 15 people and they're paying very little money, but they all came exactly for the topic. Who do you want to be in front of? And he said he had learned it's that small group, and bigger things come from it because you're with your people and they get you, and they want to share you and tell others about you. That's where you want to be.
Mhm.
And Warren Buffett said, "Don't ask a publisher." I'm sorry. Warren Buffett said, "Don't ask a barber if you need a haircut. So don't ask a publisher if you need a book, Nora, because you'll know
Right.
what my answer is.
Of course.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. We appreciate you being here and being our studio audience for this video recording that's going out. So have a great day. Thanks. Bye-bye.